So let's look at the code example now. The very first step is to declare our function, which is in this example called thread underscore function. Notice in the signature of this function returns a void pointer. This function can also take a single input, which is also a void pointer. This is a requirement for the functions that will execute in a new thread. This is a requirement of the pthreads library. If you are using some other multi-threading library on some other platforms, there might be different requirements. Next we have message, a character array initialized to contain the string hello world. This is our global variable, and later in the program we will use this as a value that is accessible as well as modifiable by the code executing in the new thread. Alright, next we have the main function, and the very first main thing inside the main function is the call to pthread create. The first parameter is used to keep track of the thread which is formed at this point. In order to do that, you just have to declare a variable of pthread type and pass its address as the first parameter. The second parameter to pthread create over here is null, because we wish to create a thread with default attributes. If you want, you can look at the documentation on how to create a thread with attributes other than the default. The third parameter is simply the name of the function, which is going to contain the code to run in the new thread. The fourth parameter to pthread create is the parameter which will be passed on to the thread function at runtime. And in this simple example, the value contained in the variable message, the global variable containing the string hello world, that will be passed as a parameter to thread function. The expression message has a type character pointer, and it is typecast over here from a character pointer into a void pointer, because the requirement is that the thread function can only accept void pointers as input. So if all goes well and a thread is successfully formed by pthread create, then its return value would be 0, and that is inspected over here for errors. If the return value is not 0, then thread creation failed and this program will simply exit. So far in the code of the main thread, we have only called pthread create and inspected the return value for errors. And the next thing is a call to pthread join. The first parameter to pthread join is used to specify which thread we should wait for completion. And notice over here that when we called pthread create, the variable a underscore thread was passed on to it, and a underscore thread becomes like a handle or a reference to our thread, and we specify it as the first parameter in pthread underscore join. The second parameter of pthread join is used to capture the return value of the thread. Remember that our threads can return a single value, which has to be a void pointer. So in order to capture the value of a void pointer, we have a void pointer declared. Thread underscore result is our variable, which is a void pointer which can store a value of a void pointer, and we pass its address in pthread join. Once again, we pass the address of a void pointer variable. That's why this expression, this whole of it, is having the type double pointer. It's a pointer to a void pointer. The return value of pthread join is also inspected for errors. Keep in mind that when pthread join is called, the main thread will be put on hold. it will be paused, and it will remain so until the thread that we have specified as the first parameter completes execution. Until that thread is running, this main thread will stay paused on the call to pthread join. So if we have reached this point, it means that our thread has completed execution, and this printf is now going to display the value that was returned by the thread. And here we see that the value which is returned by the thread, it's a void pointer. We cast it into a character pointer, and then we display it with %s. Now we are doing this because, as you will see in the code of the thread function, the thread is going to return a pointer to a string to us. Before the program exits, there is a second printf over here, and over here we will display the value of message. So the value of message is displayed twice. The first time it is displayed before the call to pthread, and the second time it is displayed after the new thread has completed execution.